tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Time. The call of time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another friendly edition of Friday with Friends. And today's friend has a lot to do with current events, and it's a friend that we all know well, but are very curious to know what he or she or it will be like in the future, and that's time. And specifically, the call of time. What is the call of time? The call of time is life is trying to tell you something. We all have this experience in our lives from our childhood until now that time is trying to tell us something and we hear it right away or we don't hear it right away. I'll give you an example. The first call of time that I would pay heed to is intuition. This would be the easiest way to listen to the call of time, where I somehow just know instinctively, intuitively, of where I should proceed, where I should go to, how I should behave. That not working, time whispers. Time whispers to you to say, Craig, go this way, go that way, don't go this way, or don't do that. Again, that not being listened to, time has to have a little stronger message where it has statements and says, this is the right way to do it. It's like written in a book. Don't do this, don't do that. And this is where most of us get our information from statements and facts that we learn that tell us how we should behave. But yet, as you know from your own experience, and I know from mine, that's generally not enough. So then maybe time gets a little more strident and starts demanding that you do some, or not quite yelling, but that's what it's leading up to, where you're told, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you. Like when someone, after years of eating improperly, finally gets a medical condition that makes them ill and they see that it's not getting better, the doctor says, well, if you don't change this now, you're not going to like the results. And finally, even then, some are not listened to. And then you start to get slapped about, pushed about, and time forces you to change. So on that graph from intuition to being forced, where do I want to fall? And so this is what I want to do, is sharpen my hearing skills to hear the call of time. And just recently, and the reason I thought of this in the first place, is just recently we had another call of time. I just saw that was like last week in the paper. I think it was on the 24th of January. The Doomsday clock made a move after several years. And what the Doomsday clock is after World War II and the atomic bomb was dropped, a group of atomic scientists, including some of those who invented the atomic bomb, had realized for the first time in history, man was capable of taking himself off the planet by his own actions. There's no longer through nature or anything that we had the capacity now to destroy the earth just with the atomic power. And so at that time, I think it's 75 years ago already, is the time they put on, thinking of all of time, for being a day, man's history being a 24-hour cycle. And in all of time, at that time, they said it's 17 minutes till midnight. And through the years, it's gotten a little bit shorter. Sometimes it's gone back and got a little bit more time. During the Cold War ended in 1991, was the longest time ever on the Doomsday clock. It was 20 minutes. But now here we are in 2023, and since the pandemic, it hadn't moved. But recently, this year, on January 24th, 2023, the Doomsday clock said there is 90 seconds left till midnight. That's not a lot of time. 90 seconds left till midnight. So what does that mean, 90? What kind of clock is that? So first of all, what kind of calendar are we talking about? So that made me think, and so I thought, what are the various calendars that some of the cultures and religions have throughout the world? And say, take for instance the Jewish calendar. It's about 5,700, well, almost 5,800 years. That's one. And then I said, well, what about other cultures? The Chinese calendar, I found out, is about 4,800 years old. And the Hindu calendar, a little over 5,000 years old, according to the official Hindu calendar, but that was just of the last age of 5,000 years of Kali Yuga. So it seems that the average of this is somewhere between 4 to 5,000 years. So we could just say, to make it average, around 5,000 years. So with a little bit of math, I won't bore you with the mathematics. If you figure out that, well, if we're at 1.5 minutes, that's 90 seconds, over 24 hours, and a 5,000 year clock, all that we have to find out is what X is. I'll leave you to do the math yourself. But I'll tell you this, it's a time that we all may see in with our own eyes. So time is that short. Of course, we can get more time if we change our ways. There was the war in Ukraine and the climate change that has recently made the clock tick forward. So what am I to do? Where's the good message? Where's the action? So I've devised like 3 steps to take. Number 1 is, what is the status quo? And that's what I've described with the Doomsday clock. That's the status quo. We have 90 seconds till midnight. And of course, this is not put together by people who just make things up. These are atomic scientists, very based in facts and knowledge. And however they figure it's still arbitrary, but just to give us a hint of where we are, of where we stand in life. So the status quo, for most of us, that's scary. In fact, I did a class on this the other night, and usually, the class might have 20 people in it. It was decreased by at least 2/3 just because of the subject matter, because we're afraid. The words like doomsday are scary, but it's just a thing. It's just a place on the clock. So number 1 is the status quo. Number 2 is, what would I have to do? What do I have to do in order to make this work for me, to find balance, to be happy, to find harmony? What do I have to do? And then thirdly, how do I do it? So I've described the status quo, and now is, what do I do? Well, if you think of that, of the clock, and you're the observer, and it's like, just like the clock you see in the background, it's a face, and then we all know what the clock looks like. And it's kind of like a movie. My role is, I'm the observer, and the time is the movie. What are the things I have to do in order to enjoy this movie? Number 1, I have to take it from that sense that it is a movie. So who am I? I have 2 things I need. Wisdom. That's what I'm really thinking of, is, what is wisdom? This is something I've thought of often. And wisdom is making the changes necessary in my life before time forces me to change. Wisdom is making the changes necessary before time demands that I change. Easy to say. So how do I go about doing that? So 2 things. I need to know who I am, and I need to know where I am in time. So who I am, well, then that's a whole nother subject of who I am. Let's say human being. And the part of the human being that I'm talking about is not the human part, but it's the being part, the consciousness part, the soul part, the eternal soul. That is something, if you need to know more about that, that's a whole nother subject. I recommend it. You look up Brahma Kumari's Raj Yoga on YouTube and find out by who am I. Just type in who am I, or better yet, find your local Brahma Kumari's Raj Yoga Center and take the free introductory course. So let's just go with that premise that I'm a soul and I'm an eternal soul. That's number one. The second part of the equation is, where do I stand in time? Well, if I just go with the facts that the scientists have told me, it's 90 seconds to midnight. So how do I view that? Or where do I view it from? So if I'm on the clock face, where's the best place to observe this phenomena, this movie, this form of entertainment? Should I sit upon the second hand that's moving all the time, kind of like a one of those rides you go to the fairs? Well, then the minute hand's a little bit slower, but still moving. The hour hand's slower yet, but it's still moving. The best place, the most still place to sit, is right in the center, right on that access point, where I can see everything. I can turn with it and look at the entire thing, all the way from, say I'm at 5 minutes till, I can see what's in the past, I can see what's in the future, the new day, and I can see where I am presently. And so we have past, present, future. For those of you who know a thing or two about metaphysics, there's that word Trikaldarshi, the knower of the three aspects of time. And that's all that it means. It means that I, the being, sit in the center. And this center is, what the center is the now. We could call it, there's a lot of books on that. It's a big term these days, power of the now. The now is the same thing as eternal. It's the eternal now. I sit on this access point and watch time, how it's ticking. And that gives me, and I know that there's, just like there's summer and fall and spring and winter, and there's dawn and there's morning and there's afternoon and there's night. What's the common denominator? Just like that clock. We tend to think of time in the long sense as being linear in nature. But in reality, there's nothing that's not part of a cycle. All of time is cyclic. We're seeing it all the time. You did it today. You woke up in the morning. Now we're moving around, and then there's night, and later on, we'll get tired and go to sleep and start the whole process over. So just in the microcosm, as in the microcosm myself, it's that way in the macro as well. All time is cyclical. So there's nothing to be afraid of. When you hear words like doomsday, it's just a word. It doesn't mean end. It just means change. It means new. But I have to sit. So number one, I sit in the center, in the now, and watching the movie. And I see the three aspects of time: past, present, future. But it takes I want to say a big intellect, but it's not really a big intellect. It's more like a spacious intellect. So how do I get a spacious intellect? What happens from 1 o'clock to 11:59? Are we dispersing of things, or do we collect things? Just look at your life. From the time, say, from when you were 4 years old to now, do you have less or do you have more? And you could see that just on the physical sense of collecting things, but on the more subtle sense of thoughts, of feelings, are you collecting feelings or are you letting go of feelings? And you could see immediately that we're all collecting. And to start fresh at the beginning, I start free of things. So waiting and for time to tell me, to force me, means that all the things that I've collected that I haven't let go of will be taken away from me. You might even use the word ripped from me. From my sense of way of doing things, I try to avoid discomfort or pain whenever possible. So I try to do something in advance. If there's a like in school, if there's a term paper due in 3 months, why wait until the night before to do it? When if you put in like 10 minutes every other day, it'll be finished in half the time and you'll never have to think of it again. It's that simple. But because we're collecting things on a consistent basis, we can't see and we get busy defending and protecting what we've collected. I call it my personality, my way of being. Someone says something to me that I don't like, I feel insulted. But I'm insulted because of the collection that I've made, not because of anything that's in my nature. In my nature, I'd have to believe, we're back to who am I? My nature is peace. My nature is happiness. My nature is expressing love. This is my nature. But what has happened as I collected through time is I don't see that clearly. It's not my immediate reaction. I'm reacting in different ways. And so then there's a result and a consequence of my behavior. And instead of saying, oh, I did this, I should let go of it, I tend to protect myself, defend my responses. And so I say things like, oh, what they did, I'll never forgive them. I'll never forget. And yet what I want to be is free. And yet I'm telling myself I'll never forget. So this is the situation I find myself in. And I hope that's made a little bit of sense to you of the logic of dispensing of the unnecessary before time forces you to do that. It's just like in one's own life. Don't worry about doomsday. Just in one's own life, we have a beginning, a middle, and an end, guaranteed. In 100 years, none of you that are hearing this will be around to hear it, at least in the form that we are today. So that's a guarantee. So isn't it better that anything that isn't going to stay with me, to let go of that, to not hold on to that before it's forced and taken from me by force? That's called pain. And for those of you who studied, there's the word, the supreme judge or Dharmraj, is that things get taken away by force only because I haven't let go on my own. So that's my main word to you, is to let go when you're in control of it, that you can choose. So I've covered 2 of the 3 aspects. Number 1, what the status quo is. It's 11:59. Well, I guess it's 11:58 and a half. And this is where I am in time. And that what I have to do is to start letting go of all the stuff just to be balanced. The very slowest I can move, time, sometimes people say that time is speeding up. Well, time's not really speeding up, but how quickly things change is getting faster and faster. This we can all see. We've only had cell phones since the early 2000s, and we're already got Zoom. It's come a long way from the telegraph just less than 200 years ago. So time is moving very, very quickly in terms of what the changes that are taking place. That means internally, in order to maintain balance, I have to let go or transform at the same speed of time just to keep pace. But if you really want to have exuberant happiness, you let go faster than the pace of time. More of that later. So we've done the what, and let's close with the how-to. So the how-to is done really sitting in the center. So let's do a little meditation. That's the actual process. That's the only tool you need. You don't need anything special from the outside. You don't need a special education. You just need your own mind. And you need your body's cooperation. So to have that cooperation, why don't you find a posture, a seated posture that's comfortable, where you could be comfortable and relaxed, but alert. See, comfortable and relaxed without being alert is called sleep. And that's why so many people fall asleep when they meditate. In fact, I have some friends who say instead of going to take a nap, say, I'm going to meditate now, because they try and they fall right asleep. That's fine. So find it. Is keeping the spine as straight as possible, yet relaxed. That's the physical. And the more subtle, let's do the breath. So the breathing is a little more subtle than the posture, and it connects the inner and the outer. So let's take several deep breaths together just to get a flow of energy going. And I'm already letting go as I exhale, letting go of anything that's unnecessary. Another one. Little inspiration on the inhale. Exhale, letting go. And one more. Inhale. Exhale, let go. Now imagine, if you would, a scene such as this. You're seated in a special movie theater. The way that I see it, it reminds me more of a planetarium than a movie theater. It's circular in nature. And there's only one seat in the entire theater. And it's right in the center. And I'm sitting on it. It's comfortable. And I'm at peace. And I notice that this chair also turns. It swivels quite easily with time. And I can see it's like the clock. I'm inside of the clock in a way. And I see from the 12 to the 1 to the 2, I can go all the way around swiveling on my chair and view everything. I call this place the seat of the detached observer. I see all the scenes that have happened before now. I accept them. I see them as past. When I turn my eyes the other way, I see that there's a future. My main feeling about that is trust. I trust my own future. Why do I trust? Because I've had the wisdom to attempt sitting here and looking silently, sitting, observing myself. The seat that I'm sitting upon is the now. I recognize the tremendous power that this gives me to sit in the now, this very moment, unaffected by any of the events of the past. No anxiety about anything to happen in the future, but trusting that trusting, just like knowing that the season change, that when I see the last leaf fall before winter, it doesn't mean the end of the world. It means rest, and spring will soon come, or even a day. In the darkest night, I know that the sun will come up again. I trust. It's not something hard. It's that easy. And this is how I watch the passing of time. I'm detached, and it allows me to see myself and what I've done and where I am and what I need to continue into the future and what I don't need. And I pay attention to that. I simply see the wisdom in letting go of the feelings, the thoughts, the opinions, the concepts that no longer serve me. They may have before, but it's different now. It's a different time. And in this now, I empower myself. All I have to do is sit and observe time moving. And as we often say, Om Shanti means I'm peaceful. So there we have it for today. Today's little call, the Doomsday Clock, and what I can do about it. I hope it was of some help. So until next time, with a physical guest, I'll say goodbye for now. Bye now.